Hey, what's up? How's it going? Here it is, Vox&Hops Episode 9. Today I sit down with Pat Loisel, the guitarist and vocalist of Augury. There was a whole bunch of strange circumstances that surrounded this interview. We were supposed to do it at one place. I show up there, the place is closed. He invites me back to his house, extremely grateful for that. We get there, we sit down, we start doing the interview. 10 minutes into it, I realize that my Zoom is not recording. Pat very graciously just stood up, went to the washroom, came back, and started all over again. So today I sit down with Pat Loisel, and we have a conversation about him growing up with Asperger's in an area where these diagnoses did not exist, his unbelievable collection of over 200 tarantulas, and how most of the material he brings to the table for Augury was actually written back in the 80s. And he also shares what it's like being a high school teacher, which is, super interesting, and I'm very glad that I dug into that, and he was extremely generous with some information about what that's like. So sit back, enjoy. Here it is, Vox&Hops, Episode 9.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, how's it going? Matt here with Pat Loisel. We are in Laval West. We were supposed to go to Noir and Blanche, a brew pub in St. Eustache, which opened in 2012. But, Google fucked us, and they had their opening hours all fucking wrong, and we got there way too early, and we weren't going to sit around outside for 3 hours. So Pat very generously welcomed me into his house, and we bought some beers, and here we are now. How's it going, man?
Oh, very fine. Like I said, actually, that was my initial plan, was to invite you here, actually. So, and when you told me about Noir and Blanche, I was, then okay, because that place totally rules. So if you're around St. Eustache, we can only recommend the whole part of that town and those restaurants that totally rule. A few of them.
Tell me about beer. Right now we're drinking a Porter Baltic from Hickson. What did you think about that beer?
Oh, I like it, actually. It's a bit like a little tad too thick for me, perhaps, but a little tad. But I prefer this than too acid or like Corona beer or industrial beer. This causes stomach burns and stuff. Brown beers, like my favorite ever is Trois Pistoles. So anything that is about around that model suits me fine.
Yeah, Trois Pistoles from Unibrew is my favorite of the Unibrew beers, for sure.
Yeah. And Noir de Chandelle is okay too.
And the Porter Baltic from Hickson is my favorite Hickson beer. Hickson came out about a few years ago, and they tried to go on the IPA craze, but I feel like they haven't matched all the other competition out there, and this is my most go-to solid Hickson beer.
I think it's only going to be better, but I sampled it little by little, because I'm not a big drinker. I will have 2 beers a day, not more. I can count on the fingers on one hand the times that I've been really drunk. So, and I'm 48. So, being nerd is not only a trademark.
Is it you don't like losing control?
I absolutely dislike losing control.
Because you don't like losing control.
I dislike.
Dislike it. Okay, so and that's why you don't like getting too drunk.
Yeah.
Do you remember what your first experience with alcohol was?
Well, we had wine when I was a kid at Christmas, little glass or diluted, like they do in France. And this is actually very outré for Americans, because in other countries they serve minors, but in America, if you allow minors to have a drink on your property, you go to jail. And but I never been fond of over drinking, and I'm just started to like some strong liquors, like brown rum. I like Baileys and that kind of stuff. I'll have some red wines and like some beers, but it's a handful of things. My favorite drinks are not alcohols. It's like Orangina, apple juice, and stuff like this.
That's cool. That's different. Do you and what about what made you get into the dark beers? Do you remember the first time you drank a dark beer that you said, "Oh, this is a beer that I actually do like"?
It's kind of coating the throat, rather than irritating it. And also non-dark beers provoke heartburns. Like a Corona, I can have one if it's very hot, but drinking 2 or 3 Coronas, it goes
bothers you right away.
No, it doesn't feel right at all.
Corona is only okay for me on a beautifully hot day with a lime, and I'll have a Corona.
On beautifully hot day, I retreat to my basement and have like my fan club directed at me.
Tell me about your life growing up as a kid.
Oh boy, I consider writing a book about it. Not because I'm important or famous or something like this, but just like the anecdotic stuff there could have a lot of people laughing. Anyway, unconventional stuff, well, since day one and before. I'm a Native American. I'm an Abenaki, and my biological parents are like pretty mixed up, like with some Algonquin, Cree, and of course Quebec white. My maternal great father was a chief of a tribe, I've been told. On my father's side, my biological father is Jean Chrétien. If you know Jean Chrétien, I spent my life laughing at him, and I just learned that I have his blood in my veins. So,
wow.
Yeah, because that guy, Paul Chrétien, he doesn't know that I exist, and he's been known for being a convict in Peru in the 70s because he was a drug dealer.
Jacques Chrétien.
Not Jacques Chrétien, but his nephew.
Okay.
Who, because I'm the result of kind of a one night stand, and he's not aware of my existence, and I don't want to join him simply. The simple fact that I accepted to meet my biological mother, like it wasn't accepted in my official family, so it's something that I keep like very low profile and stuff.
They felt.
It's a bit like you have only one mother. So my growing up is that I've been adopted at birth by a couple who were from the Gaspé Peninsula. The town is called Passepébiac. And they made their wedding trip to Valleyfield at the very other end of Quebec. And they never came back. The rest of the family just followed and settled there too. So I kind of grew up into the Gaspé community in Valleyfield. So I grew up there. I went to resident school in early teen. That was a disaster. But because also I've been adopted and they didn't disclose my origin because I was like put on adoption as a Quebecer. And but when I was like between like 6 and 13, I was pretty dark, and we had a different accent. So the welfare people living next to my house thought that I was an immigrant, and I got stoned and spat on, and they broke our windows and stuff. The late 70s, the uneducated people and of all origin and language were extremely racist. And also another thing that didn't help is that I'm an Asperger. I was extremely socially awkward. So now I had deformities, my chin, my legs and stuff. I had to wear like a big orthesis in my mouth with I had to crank it every day. So I actually have a chin now.
Oh, really?
And,
it's something you had to wear all the time.
Yeah, exactly, for a few years. And though being 11 years old among 13 years people, because I skipped a year in elementary school. So it was like it's all the good recipe to make you a universal punching bag.
Yeah, and how did you cope with that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the answer.
Actually, people started respecting me when I became good on guitar. Everything else I'm about, they don't care.
What made you pick up the guitar?
I always wanted to pick up the guitar. We had one at home when I was 7 or 8, but I didn't understand how it worked. So I actually started at 8 on keyboards, and I wanted to play stuff like Human Leagues and early new wave stuff. And then I had an electric guitar at 11, but I preferred to play bass. A guy at school lent me his bass, and the strings were easier to play and didn't hurt the fingers and stuff. And I finally started to concentrate solely on guitar at around age 13. So I've been playing music for 40 years and guitar for like 35, 37 years. I started drums in 85, but neighbors made me stop drums almost immediately, and I resumed in 2011. But just imagine if I never stopped.
Yeah, you're completely
starting
well-rounded.
1985 until now. Never mind. Yeah.
Check that, Moonier.
Yeah, Jesus lizard.
Do you think being Asperger's is something that helped you become so prolific?
Yeah, totally. Because it totally disconnected me from a lot of stuff that I find totally useless. Fashion, nightlife, gossip. There are a lot of social codes that I I still don't get that. I don't want to. It's a waste of time.
And how do you adapt now with Asperger's, as now that you know what it is? Like when did you realize this is what I have?
By reading stuff recently, and it's like, oh, it's me. But back then, nobody knew, and we're just like, okay, you're an encumbrance, just get out of the way.
But you were super smart because you skipped.
That depends.
You skipped great. You were academically.
I skipped in elementary, but then the secondary one, I failed. I had like 6% in maths.
Really?
Because I was only concerned about learning the shark species Latin name. I caught bats and I tried to raise them, and I wanted to be the Addams Family, man. And so the only thing that mattered to me was one, radio control airplanes. And biology. I was heavily into, I'll admit that people find creepy. I was heavily into tarantulas at age 13. And now, when did you change? Never. I've honed up to 200 tarantulas.
Yeah, no,
my weight.
Pat just gave me a tour of his tarantula cave downstairs, and I'm not necessarily very fond of spiders, but I held it together, and they're very interesting and they're beautiful. And
yeah, I'm into colored one, but also I own like the top 5 biggest species on Earth. So that type of stuff can pull you on the rollerblades.
Wow.
You like sleigh dog, mosh. And some of those can overpower a rabbit.
Wow. You said one of them they can crush a can.
Yeah, empty can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tickled one with a pencil, and she just grabbed the pencil and went away with it and give it back to me. But the fun is I love the arboreal kinds, and I release a moth in the cage, and you have Jackie Chan in a jar.
Wow, yeah.
It's incredible. It's some guy calculated that when they jump to catch a bird, they go at like 30 miles an hour.
That's.
I have one that is 25 years old, and they can live like 70 years old.
And you said another one can live to 80.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The rosea. Yeah, that's right. I do have a rosea that's supposed to be 80, but the problem is that no specimen died of natural causes since the hobby started being popular. I do have a guy who has like a 35 years old spider from his grandpa and stuff, but theoretically they don't have aging process.
So yes, because you were also saying that spiders molt.
Yeah, they change corneas, inside of the mouth, the esophagus, all the skin of all the skeleton, of course, genitals, lungs. So everything that we wish we would switch periodically, they do.
And how often does a spider molt?
Well, first, a young one will go several times a year. Then an adult one's going to be every 1 or 2 years. I've had case of desert species 5 years, stuff like this. My Nandu chromatus I have since 2004. It molded 2 times.
Oh yeah,
it's 25.
That's insane.
Yeah, and a sibling of that very same would be 10 inches within 3 years. They have it's like in a family. You have the guy that grows to 6 foot and the other is a dwarf. So we do have giants in human, but how many humans are 7 foot? Like 1%.
Yeah, it's true.
I do have giant species, but they won't necessarily reach a record size.
So you collected bats.
Yeah.
You started playing guitar.
Yeah.
When did the band start?
Oh, I started to play with people late teens, but the problem is that again, family was very opposed for me playing with long hair people and unclean people and stuff like that. I've had long hair for like 5 years, and there wasn't a single day without having some family member pressuring me to cut it.
Did you grow up in a religious?
They're not religious. They just simply, it's like to them, it's a musician is simply, they starve, they don't earn a proper living, they're not realistic. So getting a real job, a real job. Was a degree important for you? Yeah, exactly. I couldn't go, absolutely couldn't do like other young and just go on hitchhike for 2 years between college and university like many do. It was, no, you don't do this. And just to tell you, the overall, it's from that area's mentality. They don't take show business seriously overall. I remember when my dad or an uncle, they were watching Rock et Belles Oreilles on TV, RBO, they are, I understand they're very funny. If you don't live in Quebec and don't get French, we have to translate the whole thing.
You still won't understand it, I don't think.
Oh, some of it, but still, they are big stars. And my dad watched them on TV, and he went like, man, tomorrow morning, the foreman's going to wait them and say, you're fired. I saw you on TV, blah, blah, you're fired. You're putting shame onto the business. But Dad, this is their job.
Yeah.
They thought that people you saw on TV were doing a hobby.
Okay.
It was miles above them, the idea that somebody would be paid for it and that is being their primary income. A cat could fly, you know.
So that made it very difficult to make music a priority.
I only could start playing live around age 20, 21.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. Before that, I played live twice.
But you practiced all the time.
Yeah. Then yes. But once you have it, you don't need to practice all the time. You know, once it's
muscle memory.
Muscle memory. Wow, you're in my mind. I was about to say that very exact 2 words.
So you started making bands. When did like you start realizing that you could actually put out music and have a band? Because before Augury came out, like later.
Oh yeah, well. First of all, I always wanted to play original from day one, from the early '80s on. There are many riffs that I put out recently, but it's just rearrangements from my old riff from then. Simply, other people didn't want. Other people didn't want to play original music in the '80s. I recruited guys to make a band, old friends, and they turned that band into a club band playing Guns N' Roses and Dio and stuff like this. And then I made an original band. They wanted to play like groove trash, like Pantera, Primus and stuff. So my quote mark vampire music they didn't want to play. I wanted to put keyboard on my music since 1983. I was into heavy like backlash vampire music, Philip Glass and stuff, Enya, and I wanted to put that ghostly keyboard ambience over fast heavy metal since the mid 80s. I present the songs to any bandmates until the late 90s. Over my dead body, you never play this. And then I finally released those. Hey, you copied Emperor.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, and I totally love Emperor. There was an influence on the arrangement because I didn't necessarily add the fast and ghostly parts together at the same time. That influence came from them. Then when I joined a band called Deafness in 97, they were playing like suffocation like death metal. I just brought all those old compositions. I had them by a keyboard and we morphed into Kralizek. So Kralizek was mostly my songwriting on keyboard from the early 80s.
And you just have them in your mind, or you have them
totally.
written down somewhere?
It just reemerged when I heard the sound. I just tinker on the keyboard, just switch sound, then I hit that ghostly sound, and poof, it all came back.
And you remember all the arrangements?
Yeah. But for the Kralizek album, I had ceased playing keyboard for real, so it was mostly programmed or play one note at the time and then sped up. Same for the drums. I wrote stuff on drums, but I was physically unable to play it, and it would be like a nightmare to record me on drums. I'm starting to get reliable on drums, but the ideas made it on the album. I wrote a lot on drums on the last Augury. So I just filmed myself and shown the clip to Antoine. There are like 2-3 songs that I totally recognize my playing. He totally, you give him a kite and he makes a space shuttle out of it. Yeah, I recognize everything, but he added that little progressive thing that, this I can't do. And you know what? Antoine actually plays lead guitar on the album as well. He's better than me. The best solo, I have my solo, and then Antoine right after me is like, he's the best soloist in the band. Well, Matt is a soloist, but he's not a shredder. He's more into David Gilmour stuff.
So you guys are like a band of like the super musicians.
Oh, well, I consider myself a super singer who tries to play guitar. There are good stuff that I'm proud of, but overall, I'm the lesser musician in Augury.
You think so?
Yeah, because I'm the one person that music is not my priority since 20 years. So I've been building guitars, furnitures. I teach, I write a lot and stuff. So I see kids that play guitar 7 hours a day. Me, it's 7 hours a month. Mm-hmm. And not even that.
You said that you make guitars. When did you start making guitars?
I started fixing guitars in my teens very badly. I just did what went into my mind. And then I started getting good in my 30s. And a friend of mine said, I want to have a 8-string guitars, but back then they weren't available. Somebody was making one in Germany and that's it. So the very first guitar I built A to Z was a 8-string guitars. And then he came back a bit later and he asked me to make it fan fret. So I ripped off the fretboard and I made a fan fretboard for that guitar. And he came back later to have an acoustic done the same. And then since then I've made 25 guitars. But the fact is that the very first 8-strings guitar and the very first fan fret guitar I ever touched were the one I built long before I saw one in a store or played one from the commerce.
You just took the concept of a guitar.
Yeah. So you understand that when I saw the real ones, I recall the guitars. Okay, I'm going to change a little things on them. I totally suck for the lacquers and stuff. I have to redo my lacquers. It's something else I'm going to delegate on the next guitars I do. Electronics the same. I will stick to what I do the best, like picking the right tone wood and the construction and anything from the frets to the paint. I'm gonna have somebody else do it. They're better than me, but the price is gonna go up because my mistake was to try to lower the price and then using domestic products and have the guy come back at me because the varnish melted or stuff like this. So simply is that I don't do it. You're gonna have somebody else do it, not me.
You told me a story as we were buying beer before about playing a show with old school Cryptopsy before they were Cryptopsy.
Yeah, exactly. My band Foreshadows, so that's my first original band, who is a guy I jammed with in the mid-'80s, and they are still my best friends outside of Augury. And it's like I met them in January 90, and Kurt, the bass player, the rhythm section, those two guys are now the rhythm sections of Vanta Black Warship.
Okay.
So that's my very first buddies back then, 30 years ago. And Kurt was attending John Abbott College, and Cryptopsy partook on the Battle of the Bands, under the name Necrosis before they became Cryptopsy. So we played with Necrosis like 2-3 times. And we played, it was Steve Thibault, Dan Greening, Lord Worm. And the rhythm section was more a punkish one, actually. The bass player looked like a Matt Danzig with the forehead, a little stray of hair in the middle of the forehead. And the drummer was a kind of a blonde guy, not really a death metal guy, but he tried to help. And he said to us, I'm the fastest drummer in the world. So he made a very fast beat, but with both hands on the snare. And in the audience, you had that blonde French kid watching him go. He was Flo Mounier, and Flo joined that band, and 1 + 1 = 2. He managed to do that stuff with only one hand, and simply imitating a bad drummer helped develop his style. So I saw Dan Greening before Lord Worm, before the Worms, and then they changed the name to Cryptopsy. Okay, yeah.
Did he still have that aura about him?
Then he was more thrash metal. Well, it was funny. He had humor. That show, and I have the tape somewhere, but it's all destroyed. They started the show with a ballet dancer, and they had keyboards. So Cryptopsy, when they started, they had a girl in the band, and they had a keyboardist. So people ranting about, I always put that back on people's face. You're on the have keyboard. They started with keyboards. It's like I'll make a parallel. That India decriminalized homosexuality like last week. You have people there, Western world is imposing its perversion onto us. Not at all. You've been pervert for like thousands of years. Historical India was extremely gay friendly. Hinduist religion has transsexual characters and pregnant men. In their 30 millions of gods they have. They have gay, transsexuals, and transgender gods. It's the British who imposed them the homophobic laws in 1860
when they became a colony.
Yeah, exactly. So all the current homophobic bigotry that you see in the Middle East came from the British and other Europeans, from fucking Madagascar to fucking Easter Island. It was pretty gay. If you any Oceanian culture, you had to get your masculinity from another man. I'll let you guess how. And now those have become extremely homophobic, and they say that we brought them perversion. You've been a perv since day fucking one. You know? Sorry.
So take that.
Take that. Where? I'll let you choose.
When did you start screaming?
Oh, I've been into it since like late 80s because proper death vocals. You had a band called Augury in the 80s that had like low raw vocals. But the first official extreme bands, I thought they were bad actually. The great prototype properly sung dead vocals, it's Chuck Billy from Testament. If you get live at Eindhoven from 1987, you have a song called Ring of Terror, and he goes, "Your fate," extremely low, extremely sustained, extremely clear. So everybody who labeled themselves death metal at the time would go, no power, no precision. People who try to go fast were not tight. So actually thrash metal create proper death metal. And Testament,
super interesting.
And now people rant that Testament have incorporated blast beat and dead vocals. They were the first. They were among the first to bring extreme elements to proper performance and making it musical. And then you have Suffocation. Suffocation, there were other death metal bands, but Suffocation were musical. The Morbid Angel were musical. That's why they are still around, and others are like, who are they? My own vocals, well, I did have, but my bandmates in Foreshadow disliked death metal. Right now, they love it much more than they did when we were 20-something. So I had to stick to Chuck Billy-ish vocals with a few dead grunts at the end. When I joined Kralizek, actually what had the band split is also what shaped the future, because the singer then, Ben, he wanted to be the only singer. He felt uncomfortable to have another frontman join the band. He's like, I'm the singer, you shut up, blah, blah, blah. But I absolutely wanted to keep my vocal ideas that I already had or fragments of. So that led me to be expelled from the band. But what happened is that I replaced him once. He's a military, he couldn't do a show. And then when we started Augury, my first early songs were songs that I wrote for him. So I simply sung the vocals the way I intended him to do. So it's my main influence on vocals. A second one is Sébastien Croteau. Sébastien is my vocal teacher who actually helped me to achieve those vocals without hurting my throat.
You took lessons with him back then, or more recently?
Back then, I mean in 2001.
Yeah, for people that don't know, Sébastien Croteau is the singer of Necrotic Mutation.
Yeah, he first showed me Tibetan, monk. Are you? If I do it long, I'll have the note. But and then he explained me how to take this and just translate it toward death metal vocals. So basically, it's that the false vocal chords being sung over the real vocal chords. Some death metal vocalists only use the false one, and they burn their voice very early on in their career.
That's true, yeah. Or on tour, they just can't do it night after night.
Yeah, exactly.
They just blow it out right away.
Especially with lack of sleep, beer, and everything.
Your lyrics.
Yeah.
What do you strive to accomplish when you sit down to write a song?
My songs are motivated by the one emotion that I build around. When it's somebody else's song, I try to fit what fits with the ambience. It's like if the lyrics sound a bit like a parade, I will have very militant lyrics over it. If it sounds a bit ghoulish and creepy, I will have like more occult lyrics over it. But especially Forest, you have both in the same song. So I have to switch atmosphere, and I have to make the lyrics make sense. As for the lyrical content, is like I revolve. It's funny because, listen, there's a guy saying, well, you always go around the same 6-7 topics. And I go, well, you were assured by a guy whose 8 albums are entirely about Satan. So shut up. Anyway, have some beer. Yeah.
Thank you. No, we're switching beers.
We're switching beer, so we'll have a little mélange.
Au pied du mur from Noir and Blanche.
At the foot of the wall. And at the foot of the wall. And I'll have myself, then I go in the lyrics.
It is a brown hoppy beer, it says. It smells really nice. It's a good beer. It's where we've tried to go today. So we bought some of the beers and we're drinking them here. Lyrics.
So, well, lyrics, I keep them a bit cryptic because the same saying can apply to multiple situations. So, for example, on the first album, I have a song called Becoming God. Actually, and there's a part here, I wrote that, I was like 16, and so it just followed me, and no, I don't play it. Okay, the next band will, and
just put it in the box.
The song is about ancient aliens, but I put it on the perspective of the ancient alien coming back on Earth and seeing all their creation as morphed into they use nuclear power and computer, but for totally animal preoccupations. You're getting territory, getting the chicks, breeding, and gathering resources for my clan. The lions do it, zebras do it. Humans should move upward. So I imagine that geniuses make technology and idiots use it, and so whoever created us must be very disappointed. But I didn't mention the details because it could apply to, let's see, you discover an island with cannibals on it, you civilize them, show them science, you come back 100 years later and they're back to being cannibals, but they use cell phones to track the prey. So it's all many songs have multiple topics, and the topic is covered by 2 lines, and I'm actually writing something to explain the lyrics on the new album. Basically, is the fact that your civilization is taken for granted, and there are instances where previous civilizations were destroyed, and when people were warned of this, they never believed the person. Yeah, so, and Council is about, and it's always a recurrence that civilization fall, collapse, and so survivors are turned into slavery and stuff. You see that portrait coming in, and as I write the lyrics and I make those albums, to me they started a bit as a fantasy. But the more time passed, we made Council in 2004, it's 2018, the more I find evidence that's the actual way the world works. And there are multiple songs about elites trying to stop the global population from increasing their standards of living or education. And I found more and more evidence, including last week. And the evidence from an era is just a continuity from the evidence from the previous era. I'll give you an example. In antiquity, human sacrifices, the main reason for it was to maintain social stratification, because they asked the poor people, give your best son, your best daughter, the strongest, the smartest, while the rich, once in a while, they sacrifice their runt, so that achieve totally physically different social classes. And then you have China in the Middle Age. China, around 1400, they had the treasure fleet. It was 1,200 ships that were, no, more than that, 3,000 ships that were 100 meters and more long. To give you an example, the U.S. Navy is 400 ships. And Columbus ship was 30 meters long and less. So, they dwarfed everything else back then. Europe was caveman compared to China. But in 1500, China burnt the whole fleet and stopped every international trade. The problem is that trade made China rich, and all of China became rich, including the poor people, the peasant, and the slave, who could then afford nice houses, silk clothing, servants, and so the rich couldn't go any higher, and they saw poor people rejoining them up the ladder. So the nobility went to the government and say, "You gonna stop everything? We want the poor to go back to their fucking places." And you'll see it in every society. You have that phenomenon. And then for hundreds of years, China went back to middle age and being ignorant and poor. Europe was in totally crap because one pope hated cats. He had them exterminated all over Europe. Then comes the plague.
Oh yeah, the Black Plague. From the rats.
Yeah, from the rats.
Oh,
yeah.
See, I did not know that. Yeah.
Both you and I wear glasses. We are, thankful, because without it, I don't even see your eyes, and probably you don't too. The person who made the first pair of glasses got punished by the church. You know what? Because people could take one of the lens and put it in front of the other, then look up. Oh, everything is spherical in the universe. Oh, I see the shadow of Earth on this planet. It's round too. We gave them mean to contradict the church. Burn. The guy who invented the Braille system, Louis Braille, he got punished. And people got fired to having one of his books. He was a pariah in his time because back then reading to the blind was such a business that it employed thousands of people. And then the guy comes and show blind people how to read by themselves. Poof. The first people to invent the steam engine got it destroyed. Horsemen wanted to keep the job, and before that, the Greeks had steam engines. Fanatics destroyed them. Every time somebody evolved, you have a fanatic come in and abort the golden age. So aborted golden age, it's all those anecdotes. It's like the Romans saw them in the future going to space and having a ever peaceful civilization, and poof, barbarians came in, and you have the same telltale signs. You have the same signs. The same pattern is the groundhog era.
That's crazy. You see this happening even to...
Totally. It's like you have a regression. Even in our very mundane civilization, since 2013, I saw a return of very backward attitudes. Yahoo News published an article asking women to not choose too high situation and to turn away from subject matters in university that would give you a too high salary or put you in a position of power. You have to save American family. There are places in the States where a family like mine, where the mother out-earns the father, is considered dysfunctional. There are places you can, as a teacher, I have colleagues in the state, they tell me, what you write or what you say, I can't tell them. I can talk about any alternative lifestyle. There are places in the United States, they will punish you for having an electric car.
They'll punish you for having an electric car.
Yeah, I mean, financially.
Yeah.
And Russia is even worse. There are more electric cars in Longueuil than in the whole fucking Russia. Russia has 700 electric cars altogether.
Russia's enormous.
Yeah, the biggest. You know what? Because Putin sells oil. That is that is actual trade beside being a politician.
So all of this fuels your lyrics.
All of this also conspiracy theory, mainly because we have evidence that we've been preceded on Earth by other civilization. And what happens is that when it collapses, only the less dependent individuals survive. So the most primitive. If we collapse like Atlantis did, you and I, we survive. We remember about computers and airplane, but try building one.
Yeah.
And then you have young kids, and we rub two stones together to make fire, but we try to explain that way. We listen to death metal, and the drummer goes da 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 da. You that funny gods.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something? There are people on this planet who think that and our whole civilization is legend. There are 100 uncontacted tribes in the middle of the jungle that never met a white man in their lives. They don't know about riding electricity, nothing. So we don't exist for them. Once in a while, one of them spots a plane in the distance. The others just tell him to quit drugs.
Yeah. They don't believe.
So we're a legend. Our old civilization, the 8 billions of 8 humans, we don't exist for those people. So don't tell me that there's nothing out in space or in the center of the earth or anything. We don't know. We don't have the means to prove.
What got you into teaching?
My mother was a teacher. I told you, my dad in 58, he was the foreman building the Augury Dam, and he fell off the dam onto concrete. He broke his spine. He couldn't marry wearing crutches, but he remained a crippled for like almost 20 years. In 1976, he got a big operation in the back. I actually saw him cut all open when I was 6. It was the first gore thing I ever saw. Was my own daddy being operated on. And he then, in about 1981, he could resume working, and he built like cabinets and furnitures, and I was his help hand. But the big salary was my mom, which she was a elementary school teacher, and I've been to that very school, but I didn't have her. Thanks God, she was very, very strict. And when I came to university, I wanted to go communication, but it was really close. They didn't accept many people, and I had to go to university, so I chose like history teaching. But I didn't make it my main course. It was more Nazism, fascism, Sumerian civilization, and stuff like that. So I do have a big background in history, other than simply to teach it.
And now you teach history.
Oh, that depends. Here from here, they switch me here. And secondary 1 and 2, it's like global history from cavemen to like the world wars. Secondary 3 and 4, it's Quebec history, but they changed and it's better. Now it's going to be secondary 3 native, then the French regime, and secondary 4 is going to be the English regime and the current period.
I can imagine you're a very charismatic history teacher.
That depends. I have to make an average between the taste of everybody present. Some people, most want me to do news and political talk, but some are like, can we stick to the book? And it's funny because I teach most of my students are Muslim refugees. And I'm absolutely politically incorrect with them. I talk to them about the Wahhabi acting like a mafia and considering other Muslims like scum and just wanting to use them. It's like they have their pilgrimage in Mecca. Mm-hmm. The Wahhabi, who are the bosses in Saudi Arabia, they hate that pilgrimage. They consider it idolatry. They tried to blow the whole thing in the 1920s. And then they figure out, hey, we could charge all the others to come. So a regular Muslim who wants to do the Hajj, the pilgrimage in Mecca, he has to fork up between $9,000 and $12,000 just to go there. That money, they give Shakawi and other brainwashers because Wahhabi are 30 millions, 50 millions over nearly 2 billions of Muslims. So it's like the Nazi to the Germans, and they want to pervade. The best example is Indonesia. Indonesia has been a Muslim country for 800 years, but they had matriarchal communities and islands peopled only with transsexual people. But in 1904, Suharto, the dictator, he wanted his people to be more like conform, uniform and stuff, and he wanted a civilization with male-dominated patriarchy. So he invited the Wahhabi clerics to come to Indonesia to reform them. The violence starts there. I know imams, they said everything was fine. Then we received money from Saudi Arabia. Okay, now that you got the money, you have to take our stuff. 2 years later, kids start to get violent with their family. You are apostate. You can only read this. You can have infidel friends. Kids start being dictators with their parents, because they're brainwashed by people sent by Saudi Arabia, to which Canada sold 15 billions of weaponry.
Yeah,
we're not clear.
You don't hear that, yeah.
We're not clear in this. So we cannot complain to have those coming here if we send what pushed them away from home in the first place. And I have a Syrian student, he told me, before the big outbreak of the war, we've been checkpoint all the time and people spoke Russian or Iranian. It's not the Americans' fault. It's not your fault. It's Russian and Turkish people.
And they're going there for oil.
Syria sits atop the biggest gas deposit on the planet. So everything that happens on the surface is only mumbo jumbo. It's a way. Their only concern is to remove the locals from the surface to better they get and not pay anything to anyone. So I had a guy go back to his where he grew up in Syria. He says, the great replacement occurred here. I don't recognize any language spoken there. It's no longer my home. And then what happens there, it's only like a repeat number 200 something. Because if I talk to you about the Chilean coup d'etat in 1973, Do you know why it occurred at the first place?
No.
Hickson saw the copper deposits along Child, most of them being under native territories. So Hickson summoned the government to, you get rid of the savage, so we can take the copper. Thank you very much. In the meantime, Chilean voted Salvatore Allende, who granted the natives education and health care. So Hickson was furious. He joined all the right wingers and the military juntas who saw them like an aristocracy. He said, okay, I'm going to give you millions of dollars. You topple that government, and I want you to eliminate anyone who could vote against another government like that. So in Chile, they eliminated all teachers, all artists, all journalists, all writers, tortured to death, shot. They took 2 weeks. They filled their stadium in Santiago with artists and intellectuals, and you had thousands of guys with shotguns around the circle to shoot the lot. So, and Chile remained without superior education for years because they didn't want people to be aware that they're going to cleanse the reserve and take the copper out. Same happened in Africa. That's Belgium. Belgium wrecked Africa, and then it's China is buying everything. And it's like Congo. Congo is the first genocide. Lionel II, the king of Belgium, Congo was his private property. It wasn't a colony. It was his own garden. So he brought people to hunt people like we hunt deer, and they were coming back with Congolese strapped onto the car hoods like trophies. And every time a village didn't meet the target in harvesting latex for the tires, they killed the whole village. You know, Rwanda, they put it at war because they have diamonds. So while they fight, we just scoop the diamonds and nobody notices.
Just making people move like puppets.
Exactly. I could go for the whole afternoon.
Do you find that there's a connection between being a front man and being a teacher?
It's pretty much the same thing. I'm actually quieter on stage and in front of my class. And you shut up, please. They find it funny. Don't forget they're all African Muslims and stuff. And they call me the jinn whisperer, but most like it actually.
The jinn, like a
demon in Arabic. Yeah. And it's funny. I was teaching in Cartierville, and I just announced that I was getting engaged. And you had that tent coming, a woman, and we don't say anything. And I just heard her voice goes, "Hey, congratulations for your engagement, Mr. Loisel." When it's the Eid, they have their Christmas, they sacrifice a lamb and stuff.
Yes.
The next day, I have a box and I eat lamb. And I'm like, you're not supposed to. I'm a kuffar. I'm an infidel. Never mind.
Oh, they bring a box to you.
It happened to me once or twice. Or we go in a restaurant and all the sandwich have bacon in it. So I ended with a big pile of bacon in front of me. And I always joke with them. I'm like, okay, you guys invented alcohol, but you can't drink it. So that's your invasion strategy. You want to get us all drunk. And they laugh a lot.
Cheers to them.
Yeah. And I convert a lot to heavy metal. I had a little girl, she tries to learn blast beat. She looks like a Ewok, because we only see her face, but she wears the
hijab and she's blasting.
I saw hijab headbang.
Really? That was my next question is do your students know what you do? With Augury?
Last week they had me play the clip in front of the class.
Because someone knew?
Yeah, they all knew. Okay. Parents talked to me about it. And I have parents come and say, you had my nephew 5 years ago. Thanks for talking to him. Thanks to you, he didn't fly to Syria to become a terrorist. People say that to me. I think that's the way to handle them. You help the good ones.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest mistake that people do is to be too soft on the criminals because your race is doing it. It should be the same law for everyone. And when you let a rapist or a thug do, he comes from above, I can't arrest him. No, because you insult the people in that community who are honest, who do the effort to adapt and, to take our values. It's an insult to them. And you know what? Those thugs are going to bully them. They're going to bully them if we don't do nothing.
That's true. Have any of your past students become Augury fans?
A lot of them. I even have past students becoming musicians. The band Noir is my former student.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Emmanuel Pronovo, there are most make career as individual. There are a lot of people who are my former students who now collaborate with my bandmates on stuff. I have parents of students. I did a show at the Club Soda one year. The first row was only student parents. It was funny. I have people coming at the parent meeting and ask me to sign stuff.
Yeah. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I was now let's just talk about your child, but just sign this first.
Yeah. Somebody don't have children.
What is the piece of advice that you can give to someone that's starting a band right now?
Well, do what you want. What I do right now is doing late what I always wanted to do, because I listen to people who try to drag me away from it. So it's like I do right now what I wanted to do in the 90s or 80s or whatever. Do
you feel Augury is like was like a breath of fresh air to finally be able to?
Yeah, but it's just like it was. My attitude was like it was about time. I'm just disappointed that the opportunity comes when I no longer have the energy or time or everything, and I don't have to feel bad for it, because I constantly meet people who are 26 or 27 and I'm too old for it. You know what? I'm 20 years older. That I still do music, period. I think it's pretty much, I'm pretty proud of myself. And I didn't see many people going through what I went and still do music. Because I see old people in bands right now, but they stopped for 20 years and restarted their bands. I never stopped. I've been out of a band less than a year in the last 20 years.
Just constantly creating. When you finally found Augury and everyone understood your vision and everyone writes their songs for...
Well, as for the music, it's we all come with 1/3 of the album. Forrest wrote 3 songs, Matt wrote 3 songs. I wrote 2 songs and 2 half of songs. And then when it's somebody else's song, we simply write our part over it. Unless, it has to be this note or else it doesn't sound right, but we don't come with music sheets and go, okay, play this.
No, it's a real collaboration, but someone's in charge of the writing of the song and the structure of it. The structure of it.
Structure, it's all of us.
Okay.
Forrest shown what drum he wants and what we should play. He guided me for the vocal. For to give you an example, he really likes my deep growl vocals and not much the others. So on Forrest song, you mostly hear the deeper vocals. And Matt is the opposite. He likes my black metal voice, so go Cradle of Filth all the way. Never mind. And my own song is like alternates. And so if I have one vocal that fails a specific night, I can simply revert to the others.
Which is really lucky, because I re-listened to the album this week before coming to speak with you. And do you use inhale screams as well?
Yeah, I do, but not that much.
Okay, but it's super interesting and tricky. I still can't pull those off. So
what I go for this is that I actually can sing inhale and pronounce.
Yeah, that's not easy. Yeah. But how did it was just from practice, messing around?
I don't practice that much because I feel I don't feel right to yell without a big loud band behind me. I do it low volume, but mostly as I visualize myself in my head, I hear the vocals in my head, and some subconsciously my throat just take the right shape, and I don't need that much of practice. We practice once a year.
Are the touring days of Augury in the past?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because our professional situation, we just cannot take long off. Matt has a new job, so taking a Friday off is like quite a challenge for him. I'm a teacher; I can take a bit off, but my health don't allow me to be very long with lack of sleep, and because you always sleep like 3 hours later than you expect, and and sometimes the food, and I dislike traveling, so I accepted traveling for the sake of heavy metal, but most of the touring, outside of the show itself was like, can I be home please, so I'm not a party guy at all.
Teleportation.
Teleportation. I hate inactivity. I hate being idle. It's a physical pain for me, actually. So Forrest told me, well, I went to Japan, it was 15 years in the plane, I couldn't move. I was like, you know what, I like Japanese, but I'll send them a hologram of me.
So you're just content putting out music?
Yeah, exactly.
Playing a local show.
We would like to play some local show in the States, but the problem is you have to take the working permit, or whether you play one show or 100. So we have to quit our jobs to justify this, and it's new law. Also, I can fly because I have ear deformity, so even in the mountains, sometimes it hurts. I flew only once in my life. It was 1981. Then I was 29. They had the X-ray, and they say, that channel is closed. So and I had to give up diving because of it. I bought the whole thing, the suit, the tank, everything. And within the same year, I had to sell it back.
Because you were into scuba diving.
I was into scuba diving at 19. I had to quit everything. I cannot go anything deeper than 15 feet.
It's just agony.
Yeah, agony. It's too painful. And since water is much heavier than air, the distance, the vertical distance that you can go is much lesser.
Mm-hmm. So that's the reason why Augury never went to Europe.
Exactly. One of them, and also financial. We would have to put ourselves in shit to be able to, because you've been through it, and you understand that I have a house to pay, and I can ask my band that's paying bills, airplanes bill to Europe, then paying the transportation, that try to scoop the money from the merch, and I can ask my band, okay, I need my house money every month, or else
Yeah, and that's being fair realistic for everyone. Yeah.
It would have been possible if the very same thing happened in my early 30s. In my early 30s, I was a hobo. I was like, I didn't care. I expected to end my life in the Daniel Boone style, in a cabin in the woods and stuff. I didn't have any material objective, so I was okay with living in a van and living in, as like, I didn't have my tools, I didn't have my animals, I didn't have my books were in the store, they were in the storage, because I had an apartment full of books, but I had only books back then. So now I have like a 60 living being under my responsibility. So
what made that change?
I wanted to tour a bit, but not that much, and people exaggerated, and I kind of blew my fuse. I was like, I don't like this, so I won't do it. And I was seeing more commercial band things like Arch Enemy or stuff, but other bands that are friends of ours that no longer exist, they had to create new music because they needed to put out a new album in order to promote the upcoming tour. I don't want to create music on common. I make the music I want, or I don't make music. Mm-hmm. I refuse big pay to pay commercial music. I'm not interested. I barely can listen to non-blast beat music for more than 10 minutes. So it's like, or unless it's very genius. I love Rush. I love like some classical. But I mean, in metal, I'm very picky in metal. I hate 90% of metal. Yeah, I'm very picky. I like only the best. I will listen to 7 songs in a row, then silence. And it's my favorite form of music.
Silence.
So imagine the other forms of music. People come here and I don't hear anything.
They expect music to be playing all the time.
They expect me to live in noise. I play half an hour of drum nearly every day. I put earplugs, and then big muffs over it, protect my ears. I dislike noise. I don't go to shows very often.
And when you do go to shows, is it something you have to love?
Yeah. It has to be like, I didn't have tickets to go see Emperor, so me and Sylvie, we tried to, to sneak our way to listen from afar, and we've been supplied with the wrong maps. So
at Heavy MTL?
At Heavy MTL, a few years ago, I would sell a fucking kidney to go see Emperor. And
it rained like crazy.
Yeah, and I was like, shit, no, it can't be. I thought the show was to be cancelled. It's funny because I met Hickson twice, and both times were really awkward. I tried to be a friendly fan, a bit older, but still a fan, and it's like, but both times he was angry at something else.
Circumstance.
Is that in 1999, Samut couldn't pass the borders. They spent $12,000 in lawyer stuff, but you had that Jesus freak of a border agent who said, no, I don't want him to pass. So they had no budget for the hotel. They didn't sleep for 2 days. They played the show. Hey, I like fishing a lot. I don't fucking get lost, you know. I look at like a little kid, and I'm like 6 years older than him.
Have you ever thought of doing like a solo album?
Always. I'm currently writing stuff. It's going to be like think Augury, simpler but faster, with more operatic vocals.
Oh yeah, you had mentioned that people call your clean vocals your pirate voice.
Yeah, but pirate, because I keep it raw, is going to be my fully clean vocal, crooner vocals. Okay. I'm going to make a grindcore album going lower, and I also have a third project with my wife. I want to put like heavier versions of Quebec classics.
Oh, that'd be really cool.
Like Pauline Julien, not necessarily Quebec, Roger Whittaker, which is the very first singer that I liked when I was a toddler. And, so I'll make uncommercial music from commercial music. And Sylvie's a great singer.
Oh, cool.
Melissa Etheridge and stuff like this, she nails like this.
That's awesome. That's really interesting. What are some of, who do you think is the next big metal band coming up?
I don't know. I see some promising stuff, but because that depends on what you find legit as metal, because the biggest seller in the last 5 years was baby metal. Mm-hmm. So, and actually there are 5-6 songs that I find totally genius, by the way. Like I say, I like them despite the gimmick. The gimmick. It's like all bands like King Diamond. I loved King Diamond music, and I almost stopped when I saw what it looked like. Hey, it looks stupid. I'm not into costume. I disagree with Lemmy that he says that you cannot listen to music when the guy looks like a next door guy, you know. Me, it's another thing. We're ordinary people trying to do extraordinary music. As for the next big thing, I don't know. I missed so many stuff, but the next big scene is going to be here. You know, because Quebec scene is continually good. You had in the 80s Voivod, Oblivion, Gorguts, Cryptopsy came around. Where 2018 Cryptopsy is still around, and the scene around it has kept growing. Gorguts are still around. Dana is in Voivod. Mm-hmm. Voivod do better now than in their heydays in the 80s. You know,
that's true. That's true.
The scene, the overall scene is gonna be big. You know, they see us like Norway or the Bay Area or, you know, any specific scene, Florida, that metal.
Growing up playing in bands in Montreal, did you feel that there was a division between the English scene and the French scene?
No, not that much, but what I could find is that the English bands were a bit less extreme. Beside of the guys in Cryptopsy, you had the beats were more trashy, and the teams were a bit less scary. And then on the French side, you had Cataclysm, and they roll high in the head, and you know. So I think that having English as a second language helped us in a way, because we could dissociate it emotionally from the lyrics. So we could go address very dark concepts, but once the song is over, become happy, joy, yeah, and stuff, you know. And it helped shape the attitude beside the music. Now it picks up as elsewhere. Our label, the Artisan Era, is a death metal label from the United States. You see every post they do on Facebook is all fun stuff. They say the guy making shirts of him with eating a hot dog and stuff, you know. And I remember 10 years ago, you're too jokey to be metal. No jokes, no humor. You should take your glasses off. And it's like, then everybody keeps his glasses. Hickson keeps his glasses. Luke from Gorguts keeps his glasses. You say, you know, who wins? Me. Yeah. You know, but you know, I've been doing that stuff like 20 years earlier. And people like, no, this don't belong on metal. Humor don't belong. Glasses don't belong. Nerds don't belong. Fast forward to now, who's laughing?
What's your favorite album of the moment?
My own. No, I really dig Sutra tunes because the guys are friends, and trying to learn the drum tracks are like my main exercise. I actually jam with them. I'm just not good enough to pretend. Okay, I'm applying as a drummer. What I think is like a better person will show up before I'm good enough. I like the energy still, but I adore that guy. Majesty Dixit, all the projects from my friend Dave Clement, Majesty Dixit, Spirit of the Forest, Super Enlightenment, some Karak and Gren, some the Panopticon, I like Portal, I like Japanese pop metal bands. That's the lighter side of it. Mayhem, Great Declaration of War, I'm still a big fan, and Chimera. I'm into pretty much my favorite style of music is ultra fast black metal. You know, North from Australia, Robin from the drummer helped us on a tour. Kralis from New York, I like a lot. Portal, I like. I just forget right now. I don't listen that much to music. When I have time alone, my first reflex is not to listen to music because I'm surrounded with noise all the time. So the only time I can listen to music is when I have a very, very long time alone, because or else if I listen to music immediately, well, I have no silent time, and it's just tiresome. It's too noisy, and they crank the music over there, and you know, I watch a refectory with 700 kids yelling to the top of their lung. I'm like, oh,
that's very, very tiresome.
And then I'm next door to the music class, and you have kids for the first time trying their clarinets.
Oh,
you understand? And they say, hey, while the geese surround the school, they just had the clarinets.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time, inviting me to your house.
Yeah,
I find you very, very interesting.
Thank you very much.
You know so much about history and the metal scene, and so many years being a part of it. I'm truly honored that you took the time to sit down with me and drank some beer with me.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
I really, really appreciate it. Do you have something that you want to shout out right at the end?
Off the record. Oh yeah, keep metal.
All the best. Hey, thank you so much for listening right to the end. That was Vox&Hops Episode 9 with Pat Loisel. Pat's just so interesting. I could sit there and listen to him talk about stuff for hours and hours and hours, but, you know, I had to end it at some point and edit it down to something that's fun for all of you guys and girls to listen to, too. Next up on the podcast, I meet up with the hardest working metalhead in Montreal, Jason Rockman. He is the singer of Slaves on Dope, and he's also a DJ for Shome, which is an iconic rock station here in Montreal. During that conversation, he tells me what it's like being sober for over 25 years, and how just recently he is like exploring non-alcoholic beer and his relationship with those. We talk about how he got onto Shome, and we talk about his early years playing with Slaves on Dope on the Sunset Strip alongside System of a Down and Papa Roach. And we also just dip into a little bit his love for all things comic book themed. All the best. Check that out on Vox&Hops Episode number 10. If you have any suggestions, recommendations, if you would like to sponsor the show, please send me an email at matt@voxandhops.com. All the best. Thank you so much.